to another episode of the Millionaire Mentor Method podcast with me, your host, Krystal, also known as the most famous woman in the world. So today I want to get into what I'm sure all of you have been seeing out there, which is all the headlines about a possible global banking crisis. So I want to talk about how it all started, what it means, what is Silicon Valley Bank, how did it start this domino effect, and more importantly, and most importantly, how this affects you and what we can do right now to mitigate some risk moving forward and to make sure we're in a good financial position moving forward through this. So first of all, to get into this right away, Silicon Valley Bank was founded in 1983, catering to the tech sector. And in 2023, by 2023, it had over $209 billion in assets. So why is this important? Well, this is making headlines right now so impactfully because this is the largest bank failure since the 2008 crisis. And it's the second largest bank failure in history. That actually shocked me right there. So second largest bank failure in history. SVB had 50% of all U.S. startups as its clients. So that means half of all U.S. startup companies had money with SVB. So we're talking about this is affecting thousands and thousands of companies and employees. So now at this point, 3 U.S. banks have failed with the FDIC thankfully covering depositors. And now for a slightly different managerial problem across the pond over in Europe, Credit Suisse, which is one of the largest banks in the world, is now on shaky grounds and is itself asking for what is basically a bailout. So this whole thing is now prompting a panic, and we're seeing bank runs in Europe and Africa and possibly here in the United States as well. So to back up, what exactly happened? How does a bank fail? I mean, the bank is supposed to be the one with all the money, right? How can a bank fail? So this is the question that until I understood exactly how banks work as a business, I did not understand how a bank could fail. And then more importantly, how that affects me and why should I care? So I'm going to make this super simple. At its core, SVB had bad management. It had bad money management. So it had bad risk management. And what does that mean? What is risk management? So at a bank, risk management means that the bank, when it is investing in things like security, mortgage-backed securities and bonds, it can choose what percentage of its money it's going to allocate to these things. And as the economy changes and evolves over time, depending on what's going on in the world, banks need to allocate their money in different ways in order to make sure that they don't lose your money. And so what do I mean by losing your money? Well, so this is where we have to This is where we have to back up and figure out, how do banks make money? So a lot of us, still maybe have the idea that when you go deposit $1,000 into a bank, that you're just depositing it and you're giving the bank $1,000, and that's where you put your money in order to be able to use a debit card. But we have to realize that a bank is a business. A bank is a for-profit business. And its business model is, to me, one of the wackiest, craziest legal business models ever invented. And which is why one day, one of my goals is to start a bank and to actually own a bank outright, which, by the way, you can do. You can do that. Okay, how does a bank make money? What is a bank's business model? So banks use something called fractional banking, which means that when you deposit $1,000 into a bank account, the bank is only required by law to keep 10% of your actual cash. So they don't just keep that $1,000 just sitting there. No, they take 900 of those dollars and they go and invest it. And their idea is that you are actually loaning them that money in order for them to loan out that money. And the difference between what percentage they pay you, which usually is almost nothing, like 1%, 1.5% or something, 2%, and the interest they charge to someone that they loan that money out to. Let's say someone wants to buy a house, they go to the bank, they get the money and they pay an interest. So, of course, the bank is going to charge them, let's say the bank charges them 6%. So if the bank charges them 6% and they're only paying you 2%, the bank just made 4% on your money. So that is how banks make money. Banks also invest in U.S. treasuries. So banks buy government bonds. And what does that mean? Well, that means that the government is so the bank basically loans the government money, the U.S. government. And then the U.S. government, after a certain amount of time, pays the bank interest on that money that it just loaned out. So the banks loan out money, your money. The banks loan out your money to other people in the form of things like car loans and home loans. The bank also loans out money to the United States government and makes money on interest. Okay, so we got that. Yay, we got over a very, just every time I think about this, I'm like, I want a bank. That's all I know. Okay, charge Susie 2%. Charge Sam 10%. Got it. I make 8%. Wonderful. It's beautifully simple, and they overcomplicate it because I feel like if people really understood this, they would you would never put money in a savings account because it doesn't make any sense. But what happened with SVB and their bad risk management? So SVB put 75% of its assets, they said up to 75% of its assets into long-term bonds. So they had at least $80 billion. Actually, you know what? I need to get these actual numbers right, but I know they did have at least $80 billion in long-term bonds. So what does that mean? Well, it means that in a low interest environment, which we learned that during COVID, the Federal Reserve, which sets interest rates, set them very, very low in an attempt to stimulate the economy by allowing people to have access to cheap money that they could take and build things like businesses, hire people. Okay. But in that type of environment, what ends up happening is that these long-term bonds are a good investment. Interest rates at the Fed are low. Long-term bonds are paying a good percentage for the bank. So this particular bank decided to put a large investment into these things, which, by the way, I read a statistic that most banks have only 6% of their assets in long-term bonds. So the Federal Reserve kind of unexpectedly raised interest rates. So what does that mean? Well, it means that the managers at SVB made a miscalculation. So when the Fed raised interest rates, it meant that these long-term bonds, their value went down. And I'm not going to get even more into why. Just know that when the Federal Reserve raises interest rates, these long-term bond values goes down. And there was a few things that were going on here at the same time. At the same time as the Fed is raising interest rates, angel investing and investing in startups in general went down, which meant that clients of SVB started needing to pull out more cash in order to cover their startup expenses because they were seeing less money in investment. So SVB's cash deposits are going down because customers are withdrawing their money, and also some of them closing their accounts because they're failing. Okay? Now they're also losing money on these long-term bonds. So that's going down at the same time. So at a certain point, Moody's, which is an oversight ratings agency, actually called the CEO of SVB to warn him that his bank was in trouble. So to make a very long story short, the CEO of SVB said a few choice sentences which caused those in the know who heard these things or read these things to panic. So his solution to these two things going down, the long-term bonds value going down, and the customers' cash going down, their deposits going down, was to raise money. And whenever a bank is trying to raise money, it is a signal that there's something wrong there, fundamentally wrong. So in an environment like Silicon Valley, this panicked everyone. And SVB clients started what's called a bank run. And by a bank run, I mean cash to the tune of $42 billion was all trying to be taken out all at once. So when everyone tried to take out their money, all of the SVB customers, the FDIC, which insures bank deposits up to $250,000, had to step in and cover more than they're actually required to cover by law, because most of these clients were companies, which did have more than that in their accounts. So what in the world is going on here? So to make it very, very simple, they had bad management. And one of the reasons why they had bad management, specifically bad risk management, is because the chief risk management officer retired prior to all of this happening last year. So there was 8 months where there was no one in that seat. So there was literally no one watching how their money was being allocated for the better part of a year, which is scary. A lot of experts are saying that this is a bailout by another word. So even though it is the FDIC that is insuring customer deposits, that it is still a bailout. And some experts are also saying that this can go next level and have a severe domino effect. Of course, there's other experts who are saying that it won't be a domino effect because SVB was a niche bank and it catered to a very niche sector. So I'm not going to say either way. I personally do not like to sow panic, and I don't like to be a part of that game, because the real truth is this: if the economy is up, if you know what you're doing, you can make money. If the economy is down, if you know what you're doing, you can make even more money. And what do I mean by that? Well, I mean, when the economy is down, things like home prices, stocks, other assets, sometimes even materials, cost of labor, cost of marketing, those things all go down. So you're getting a discount. If you know how to correctly price certain things, if you know how to research and you learn how to research correct pricing of certain assets, when the economy is down, if you have cash, you can go in and buy those things at a discount so that when the economy goes back up, there you go. Something that only cost you $1 is now worth $10. Maybe a house that you bought during a recession, which was priced at a discount. Let's say that you bought a house at $300,000 when the economy was down because you researched that house and you researched the neighborhood and you researched moving trends. And you got that house for $300,000. But then a few years later, when the economy goes back up, now that house is worth $800,000. So you just made $500,000. Just like that. And is it that simple? Yes, it is. But here's the crux. When the economy is going down, most people go down with it. So when the economy is going up, we all go up. When the economy is going down, we all go down. But the idea here, and what this show and podcast is all about, is to do the opposite of what everyone else does. Do the opposite. So when the economy is up and assets are overpriced, you don't buy at the peak. You don't buy anything at the peak. You buy at the bottom. So when the economy is going up, that's the time to stack. Stack your cash. Learn. And when the economy goes down, hopefully you saved some cash so that you can go in and buy some assets. Even if it's something small. Even if it's just stocks. Even if it's just index funds. So what does this mean for you? For me, this is just a wake-up call to remember to always diversify and to put your money in real assets. And by real assets, I mean real estate and other real assets like gold and silver. Never keep more than $250,000 in cash at a bank. And this is exactly why. And yes, I understand that most of us are not trying to deposit $250,000 at a bank. But the idea is that hopefully by listening to this podcast and joining our community and being active, you will. That's the point. So also during this time, what can we do? We can focus on increasing real skills. So one thing that I just always want to stress is that more important than listening to motivational books motivational audiobooks and motivational speeches and all that stuff, more important than that is to acquire real skills that can increase your income and increase your life fulfillment. And by real skills, I mean skills and qualifications that are in demand in the economy right now. So what does that mean? It means things like engineering. Engineers are paid very well because they have skills, real skills that are needed in industry. What's another skill? Being a CPA. CPAs have real skills. And that's why they are able to have typically high incomes. What's another real skill? Being an electrician. That's a real skill. So you need to have real skills that are monetizable. And importantly, right now, what we want to do is we want to decrease our expenses. So I think this is the number one thing that we can do, because as a CEO, one of our biggest jobs is actually to cut costs. So a lot of people think that the CEO is really, really more focused on increasing the income of a company, sales and things like that. And while that is true, I would say equally as important, or maybe even more important, is cutting costs, decreasing overhead, decreasing expenses. A wise man once told me, it's really easy to make money. The hard part is keeping it. And that is so true. How many of us have worked for 10, 20, 30 years and we don't have anything to show for it? And why is that? That's not because we didn't have enough income. That's because we spent it all. We gave all of our money away. We gave our money away to our auto manufacturer. We gave our money away to expensive clothes, expensive furniture, expensive nights out on the town, whatever things that you're buying on a daily basis, Starbucks. We're giving away all of our money. That's where our money goes. So even more importantly than increasing your income is decreasing your expenses right now. So what we want to really focus on is looking at little things. Maybe you have a subscription to something that only cost you $5 a month. Right now is the time to cancel it. Cancel those subscriptions. If you have multiple streaming accounts, if you have Netflix and HBO Max and Prime Video and Hulu and this and that, you need to cancel all of them except for one. You don't need all of those. Or maybe just, if you really have to, watch some commercials, because you shouldn't be sitting there consuming content that much anyways. If you have a subscription to something that's $25 a month, that's $300 a year. Now is the time to keep that $300 for yourself. Even more importantly than this global banking crisis right now is the problem of high inflation, debt like we've never seen it before, and wages not keeping up with the cost of living. Those are things that we're all suffering from right now that is impacting all of us. So with this banking crisis, it's just another problem in a recession. And these things have fallout and repercussions across the entire economy. So at its very most basic level, what we really need to know is that the recession is deepening. And not to be scared, it's not all negative. The good thing is that there's ways to thrive in this type of economy, and there's ways to even make money. But the most important thing is to realize, first of all, you're not alone. All of us are feeling the same pains. All of us have to pay for food. We see that it goes up. All of us are seeing little expenses going up. If you're an employer, you're seeing all of your costs rising. So right now is the time to get scrappy. I want each and every one of you, if you don't already do this, but I want you to look at your bank statement right now. Go look at your bank statement. Go look at every account you have. Go look at your credit cards. Go look at your checking account. And I don't care how painful it is, you need to look and see exactly what little things you're spending your money on, and really try to tighten that up right now. That is so important. I just did that the other day, and I found probably easily $1,000 I could save every year, just from stupid subscriptions and crap, and like little things I had even just forgotten were on automatic and were being billed on some of my cards every month. And I went back just the other day and looked and went, wow, I forgot I had that. Oh, I forgot I had that. cancel, 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 cancel. If I'm not using it every single day, and if that thing is not actually helping me make money right now, it's being canceled. Because you know why? I can use that $1,000. I can take that $1,000 and I can put it into an automated dollar cost average diversified portfolio. That's just set it and forget it. And I can make that $1,000 turn into $10,000 without even doing anything. So I'm just urging everybody to take a look at all of your line items. Don't be afraid of it. It's one of the best possible things that you can do. And far to the contrary of being afraid of this type of crisis, I want all of you to go out and look for opportunity. This is the time for opportunity. Look for assets that are underpriced. And some assets are things that you may not think is an asset, or you may not be looking at that as something that is underpriced. But here's something that I would include in that class, which is online paid ads. So I don't think paid ads are talked about enough. But right now, paid ads, especially if you get a certain niche, are definitely at discount rates right now. And that means that, let's say you have company X, and for every customer, let's say this, you have company X, it sells widgets. And the cost per click on Google Ads to be at the top of the page for Google Ads for your widget, for your product that your company sells, is $1 per click. Okay, well, what if for every 10 clicks you get a paying customer? And that paying customer pays you $100 for your widget, whatever it is. Well, you just made $90. Or what if that widget costs $20? You still made $10. So go out and look for those opportunities, and importantly, cut your overhead as much as you can. If you need to get a roommate right now, get a roommate. If you need to put your car on Turo over the weekends, put your car on Turo. If you can make some extra money Ubering, go Uber. If you can make an extra $200 a week on Uber, that's $800 a month that you can make, and you could invest wisely. And by the way, these couple companies that I'm going to mention, I am absolutely not sponsored by them. But if you want to get into a very, very, very easy and safe way to dollar cost average and have your investments just automated, look into Wealthfront or Ellevest. And that's Ellevest, Ellevest, Wealthfront or Ellevest. Those are a couple companies that I checked out myself. I'm actually using Ellevest myself. I just started with this company because I'd never heard of them before, but I just started with them, so we shall see how that goes. But so far, I am very, very impressed, and that is just a way to have professionals manage your portfolio. And this is something that you can do instead of putting your money in a savings account, which gives you pretty much no money at all. With inflation, it basically means that your money's going to be going down, not up. So instead of putting your money in a savings account, go to Wealthfront, go to Ellevest, and put in $50. Put in $50 a month. Instead of putting that $50 a month in a savings account, put it there instead. Let it earn you something. Instead of having that extra Starbucks that month, take that $5 and put it there. So guys, the key takeaway here is that yes, the recession is deepening, but it doesn't necessarily have to mean a bad thing for you. Right now would be a great time to prepare, pick up a second job, Start Ubering, start babysitting, start rovering, start lawn mowing other people's lawns, just for that extra few couple hundred or couple thousand a month. It's going to make a huge difference. Recessions are some of the greatest times to learn, grow, change, and become wiser. That's certainly what I'm doing. So, as always, please go check out millionairementormethod.com. We have a growing community of smart asses just like me and you who have plans to take over the world, and we're going to do it together. And remember, each one teach one.
The information provided in this podcast is for educational and entertainment purposes only and should not be construed as financial advice, investment advice, or medical advice. The host is not a financial advisor nor a medical doctor or licensed therapist. Any financial or medical decisions made based on the information in this podcast are made at the listener's own risk. It is recommended that listeners consult with licensed professionals such as CPAs, financial advisors, and licensed physicians before making any investment or medical decisions. The host and creators of this podcast accept no responsibility or liability for any loss or damages incurred as a result of the information provided in this podcast.